Good morning, everyone. My name is Ethan, and this morning I'll be running through the Build Modifier in Blender. Now, what the Build Modifier is that it causes the face of a mesh or an object to appear or disappear one after the other. Um, it almost looks like the faces of your object are dissolving in or dissolving out or reappearing or disappearing in a very random order. Um, but it's just to kind of show you how how the face of an object can be built over time. By default, the faces of your objects appear in the order in which they're stored in memory. So if you have 10 faces and they're stored in 1, 6, 4, 7, 8, they will appear in that order. So there's no rhyme or reason to which face will pop up. Now you can change it later on, but at the very beginning, it will just appear like it's coming in absolutely randomly. You can change it in edit mode once we get that far. So we're going to start off with our default cube. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy it out twice because I want to show you the difference between an object that has very few faces and an object that has a lot of faces. So we will be subdividing this one in a bit, but for the moment we'll just start here. So as usual, click our object, go over here to the modifier properties, add modifier, and we're looking at build. Now, at the very beginning, what will happen is that the object will disappear because it's going to reappear in a minute because that's the way that it's been set. And what we will do is I'll just go through this, the actual modifier over here first because it'll make more sense. Start to run it. Now, it's all based on the length of frames and the frames. It's a bit more of an animation um, than applying like a boolean where you're subtracting objects and stuff like that. So when I actually click for this to run, you can see that the object is building itself, reappearing. It'll reappear and disappear. So the start frame is frame 1. So down here it'll still be a frame 1, and it will run for 100 frames. Now we have it at 250, so I'm going to bring that down just to show you. So look. So that's what it means by the start frame. You have the length. Now you can increase or decrease these. So if you want it to be 50, you can change it to 50. You can click the reverse tab, which means that it will come in fully built up and then disappear towards the end of the frame. So as you can see, it's going backwards. And next, what you can do is you can use the randomized selection, which if you wanted to change it to show different faces come in, you can do that. Now you can't really see on this one on the cube because it's got a very limited number of faces, but you will be able to see it here when we go to subdivide this cube. So to subdivide, we come down here, subdivision, subsurface. I'm just going to go simple and maybe do it 3 times. And as you can see that has subdivided our cube out into these little faces. So here on, let's say this top face, we have 1, and we have an awful lot more than 1 faces up here. So what we'll do now is I'll apply the build modifier. I'll come out of edit mode, and we'll go build, and I'll come back here to 1. Now that has disappeared because yes. So that did disappear because obviously when you apply the modifier, it disappears first, and then you have to hit the animation, start the animation for it to see. So here we go. Now both of these are set for 100 frames long, but as you can see, this is a lot quicker. It's still the same amount of time, but it's building the faces quicker because it needs to fit all those faces into that time. And it does look quite cool, doesn't it? Now, I did talk about earlier on what we could do because this comes in very random. But let's say if you wanted to change it to have it so that it starts at this point and then works its way out, you can actually do that. So we're going to click all, select all the faces in our mesh. Might just change that to faces. And then we're going to go to mesh, sort elements. And in here, we can look at, there's different types of selections, but we're going to concentrate on cursor distance. And what that will do is the distance from the when we set this point here, this 3D cursor to, let's say, this corner here, it will build out from that point because it will do the closest faces to that point first and then last. So one of the things that I found difficult was getting the 3D cursor to work or to snap to a certain point, the point that I want, let's say, to build away from. And best way that I found after doing a little bit of Googling is the one I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to click a point on our cube, which is here, which is going to be the middle of that face. I'm then going to hit Shift S, and you have a load. These are, let's say, the 3D cursor options, right? And they're all kind of self-explanatory. So like if you have selection to cursor, so if I click this node will go to the 3D cursor. But if I do the opposite, cursor to selected, it will bring this cursor to my selected node point. So I'll click that, and it's there. That's easy, and it's snapped there. And the next thing we have to do is that once you move the 3D cursor, you have to redo the sort mesh elements, because let's say if you did it down here, if I bring it back into, take it out of edit mode, it's still building away from, let's say, a test point that I had down here first, because it should be equal. See, it's building from down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, mesh, sort mesh elements, cursor distance, and don't forget to click the faces. Okay, now go tab, and that should, yeah, build away kind of equally from this point. And just one final part to the tutorial. This is the thumbnail that I was making for the tutorial series I'm going to put up on YouTube. And as you can see, it's just a little Subdivide monkey head with, I put on some black glass eyes. Thought that would look kind of cool. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to apply the build modifier to this. See, the faces are coming in randomly, or at least part of the faces are anyway. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to tab, going to select all of our, what I'll do is I'll actually set the 3D cursor first. So if you remember, we click on a node point we want to set. I'm going to click this one here in the middle of the eyes, Shift S, hold that down, and then cursor to selected. And then that has moved the cursor to here, just before the eyes. Now to get it to work, we must select our mesh once again. So click A for all, go up to mesh, sort elements, cursor distance, and make sure to click faces down here. And if we come out of that tab, you can see that Build Modifier is now building away from the center mesh point, the center node point here in the mesh. And one thing to remember, if you come over here to the build and you're wondering why what you've set isn't working, you might want to just check that you don't have the randomize feature on, because the randomize feature will override the sort mesh elements. So instead of getting a nice build from here backwards, the randomize will literally just put it in randomly. And yeah, so that's been the tutorial, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. If you liked it, please give the video a like. And if you want to see any more, subscribe. And I will talk to you soon.